Welcome back, everyone. Excited to have our second accounting professor here on the podcast, hoping to get some more here in the future. I have Kevin Kimball with me. He is the accounting department chair at BYU Idaho, one of my previous universities. And BYU Idaho is doing some really, really cool things with accounting right now. So I wanted to have Professor Kimball on to talk about what they're doing, how the accounting industry might be changing, and get to know him a little bit better. So thank you so much for joining me today.
I'm happy to be here. Thanks for the invite.
Yeah, so do you want to give us a little career background? My favorite first question is always, why accounting? So why accounting, and how did you end up teaching at BYU Idaho after your career in accounting?
Sure. Well, I went off to college at BYU Provo as a computer science major. I had done some coding in high school, and I liked that. But this is back in 82, 83, learning on an Apple computer, Apple Basic. But I liked coding. I thought that was cool. And so I was a computer science major, but then I went and served a mission for our church. And as I came back, I was thinking maybe I didn't want to stick with just pure computer science. And so I was feeling around as to what I wanted to do. And I had always wanted to be an entrepreneur. And I knew that understanding accounting and the language of business was going to be essential. So I did some informational interviews. I had a cousin who was at a big 8 accounting firm down in San Diego, and I visited his office, and his office overlooked Mission Bay and the very fancy office. And he gave me the rundown. I thought that was pretty impressive. But I was then at a friend's home and talking to his mom, and she goes, "So what are you going to major in when you go back to BYU?" And from the other room, the painter, unrelated to the family, had overheard the conversation. He goes, "You should major in accounting, because when I go and talk to my accountant, he talks to me for like 5 minutes, and then I work with his assistant, and he bills me $200 an hour." I thought, well, that sounds really good. So obviously it's not necessarily that way, but I did choose to go back to BYU and take my first intro to financial accounting course, and I loved it. And the main thing that really made me love it is when I sat in that class and there was a question that came up, if I just kind of thought through the logic of what the answer should be based on certain fundamental principles, I tended to come to the right answer. I didn't feel like I was just trying to memorize and banging my head against the wall trying to memorize terms, but rather I had a feel for it and it made sense to me. And I thought, well, I might actually be able to be decent at this and provide for my family. So that's really what the kicker was. I took that first class and it just made sense. Things fell into place, and I knew the value of it in business, and that's where I wanted to be. So
I love it. I love it. So you graduated from BYU. Did you do a master's in taxation, a master's in audit, and then where did you go after that?
So I did they have the integrated program. You do your bachelor's and master's at the same time. So it's effectively a 5-year program. And I don't know that they still have it now, but it was an emphasis in managerial accounting, kind of like an MBA with an accounting emphasis is kind of how I describe it.
Okay.
I knew I'd go into auditing, but I just wanted to have a little broader perspective on business because, once again, I still kind of had in the back of my mind I'd be an entrepreneur. And so that was my emphasis. And out of the gate, then I started at Deloitte in Southern California, then went over, transferred to Salt Lake City, and then I transferred to Europe over in Luxembourg, continuing to serve one of my clients, which was General Motors. And I was there for another few years. And then after the end of a total of about 7 years in public accounting at Deloitte, we realized we wanted to move back to the United States. And that's when I had an offer to go back to Deloitte Salt Lake as a manager. But we were still looking at options. And an option came up where they were looking for an accounting professor at BYU Hawaii. And I read that in the church news. And this was late at night, the middle of winter in Luxembourg. And I called over to my wife. I said, "Hey, what do you think about my teaching accounting at BYU Hawaii?" She goes, "I'm there." And so I applied and wound up getting the job at BYU Hawaii as an accounting professor. This would have been back in 1997. and I had 18 years of my career there as a teacher of accounting, and now I've been here at BYU Idaho for 9.
Wow. Wow. And what have you enjoyed most about teaching accounting? How is that compared to maybe your career at Deloitte?
Sure. Well, one of the things I really loved about my career at Deloitte was the opportunity to help new people understand their role and understand how to do the work and understand the principles, why they're doing what they're doing. I remember just receiving a compliment from one of my staff people mentioning how he enjoyed working with me because I took the time to help him understand what he was doing, why he was doing it. And so I really enjoyed that side of it. And so what I love about teaching is that I get to do that, 24/7 effectively, not 24/7, obviously I'm not doing this, but it allows me, all my thoughts are about what can I do to improve learning for my students. And that's something I really enjoy. And also when you hear about your alumni going on and having great careers and they're crediting some of their success to the learning that they received at the university. That's very rewarding.
Yeah. Yeah, no, my first couple accounting classes at BYU Idaho were definitely exciting, which is something you don't hear from a lot of business students, right? Business students are thinking, "Oh, I got to take financial accounting and managerial accounting, like I don't want to take those," but it was exciting for me,
Yeah.
and I love that that's what you guys are doing over there at BYU Idaho. So I want to shift a little bit. A lot of what I talk about on the podcast and on LinkedIn is what's going on in the accounting profession right now, right? The different problems the profession is facing, um, things that are changing, things that are moving in a different direction. I'm excited about the future of accounting. I'm sure everybody who's listened to my podcast knows that now, right? But specifically with the pipeline problems, what do you see as being the biggest factors in that? And how are you and your team of teachers at BYU Idaho helping your students face that issue?
When I hear pipeline of bringing accounting professionals through their education into the profession. Is that what you're referring to?
Yes, yes.
Okay. So what I see structurally is going on, and the profession's known this for years, is you have a whole group of baby boomers who are now moving into retirement age, and I'm right at the tail end of the baby boomers. Um, and you're getting tens of thousands of accountants, seasoned professionals who are retiring. And what that tends to do is it sucks the next level up. And so, everything moves up and you got to fill the base. The challenge is the number of students choosing to major in accounting is declining. And so you kind of have two different things. You have a loss of professionals and you don't have a feeding in of the new professionals in a matching number. And so structurally, the firms are having a big challenge in actually getting the people they need. And so we're seeing a positive for our students, those who choose to major in accounting, is that the salaries are going up. So that's a positive thing for them. And obviously, it's a positive thing that demand for their skills is going up. So job security, obviously, is a good thing. So that's a challenge. And we've experienced that a little bit. I think overall, universities are down just in numbers, but then even within that, the segment of accounting, those who do come to the university, the percentage that are choosing accounting is going down a little bit. So what are we doing? We're having meetings about that in particular. And one thing is, if a student does indicate that they're majoring in accounting, we're striving to reach back a little earlier, even before they arrive on campus the first time, to let them know, hey, we're excited that you've chosen accounting. We're here for you. We're excited. Come and drop by, and making a more personal touch so that they feel that they've landed in a major that cares about them. So that's certainly one thing. I think the other thing is recognizing that maybe the skill set of the modern accountant is changing. And that skill set, at least from what I'm reading and what I'm hearing from the professionals, is they're expecting more of these technological skills in a variety of different areas. And so that, since I do come from a computer science background, I've always kind of emphasized that, trying to ensure our students in accounting do have these technological skills that, at least as a new person, will kind of help them stand out, and that they can be a service to those around them, training people at the same level or training people up the line. And I think that's a great thing when you're a new person, that you can add value right out the gate. Um, and also that they have this confidence technologically that they can adapt to whatever they're given. So those are some things, the highlights that we're trying to do to kind of address the changes in the profession.
I love that. And, when I was a student at BYU Idaho, so I took a lot of coding classes, was able to develop quite a few data analytics skills. But now you guys have implemented a new Excel speed tournament. You want to talk a little bit about that? I think this
Yeah,
is the coolest, funnest thing ever, right? Like I get excited about this, but explain to my
sure.
listeners a little bit what that tournament was and what you guys got to do with the students.
Well, in accounting, you kind of have these two things. Sometimes they compete with each other. There's effectiveness and there's efficiency, right? Effectiveness is you're achieving the objective. Efficiency, you're doing with the minimum amount of resources. And what we hear over and over again from our employers and our returning interns is that when our students know these skills that allow them to get certain tasks done faster, they rise to the top. The menial tasks get done sooner, which allows them to get assigned to more interesting things, and that just kind of helps advance their progress. So I actually applied to take a sabbatical, 1 semester sabbatical. This will be next spring, where I'm going to develop a bunch of case studies that that we can use in this Excel competition, that challenges them to use a variety of built-in functions or hotkeys or things like that to accomplish some tasks in Excel. But before that, since I haven't created it yet, I wanted to just test the technology. Can we get this to work? Where we have our competitors, we can see all 6 of their screens at the same time. Can we just run it in an efficient way? Can it be fun from a viewer's perspective? The audience. And so that's just what we did recently. So what we did, brother Don Campbell created an Excel workbook that has, I can't remember the number, let's say 90 different hotkeys in it, and they're grouped by what type of hotkey they are, if they're formatting or they're file, what some other ones, functions, like can do functions or whatever. I don't remember what all the groups of hotkeys were, but he created that would allow a student to be prompted. How do you go to, navigation. How do you go to the bottom of a set of cells that have values in it? And there's a hotkey for that. And so when they test themselves, they type in the hotkey, hit a tab, and then it'll tell them whether they got it right or wrong. And it kind of keeps track of their progress, how many they've gotten right, what percentage it was wrong. And so that's how we ran the competition. We had groups of 6 come up, or 5. We turn on their, everyone would have the program opened, say go, and then they had 5 minutes to get through it. And then we kind of tracked the progress and their percentage of right and blah, blah, blah. And we had a winner. So that was just to test, are we getting the technology to work, but also another way to just motivate students to learn how to do things more efficiently so they can get on to the more interesting effectiveness side of things, right? They both are there. So anyway, that was the story.
I love it. One of my favorite informational interviews that I ever did was with an accountant who had mastered Excel to the point where he didn't have to use a mouse anymore. And that
Yeah.
blew my mind, right? It was awesome. So that was really cool. So I'm kind of non-traditional
Well, I
in
should give
that.
you the name of someone that you would enjoy interviewing. His name's Michael Corrado. He's one of my former students from BYU Hawaii. Who that's what really propelled his career. But anyway, I'll let you continue. Sorry.
No, you're good. I think there's a little bit of a lag here in the in the recording. So I'm a little different in the fact that I'm interning at a small, very, very small cloud-based accounting firm instead of a big four. And, I
Mhm.
kind of try to show this other side of accounting that maybe a lot of students don't know about. The bulk majority of accounting jobs are coming from the top 10 accounting firms, right? As auditors, and then another portion of them are tax accountants. Um, is there anything BYU Idaho is doing to show the different avenues you can go in accounting other than maybe just the big four? And to preface, I'm a believer that the big four is a right place for a lot of people. But for some people, that might not necessarily fit their mold. Um, and I think as a profession and as educators, I think there can be more that can be done to help show these different avenues. Does that make sense? Is there anything BYU Idaho's doing to show those other avenues?
Well, I just talked to my students about this exact question, and maybe explained why so many accounting programs across the country tend to emphasize public accounting. And my take is that it's kind of easy to place students in public accounting because every year the bottom rung of public accountants move up or out, and so there's always empty spaces for a new staff accountant across the country in all the firms because people move up and that empties the bottom layer. And that's it is what it is. And also it is true, I think, that people who have some public accounting experience, which gets them to being certified as a CPA, that opens up these opportunities to do other things should they choose to do that. So I think in that regard, as a professor, when you're trying to get them placed and get into good jobs, public accounting is kind of bread and butter. Um, so it's a little harder to help students find these other jobs that are not in public accounting because it's like this job comes up once every 3 years at this one company, for example. That's a little trickier. So to really have a recruiting support system on our side to connect our students with that one job that may only come up one time every 3 years, that's a little difficult. Having said that, I hope that it's happening in our accounting program that we do talk about those other opportunities, and we do have our meet the firms where we do bring in companies that aren't necessarily in public accounting and things like that. So the students have the opportunity to do internships at these other companies. But it is kind of a tricky thing where we're trying to make sure all of our students get placed, and one of the easiest places is in public accounting.
Yeah, I definitely can see that, and it's hard. But part of the excitement that I have in accounting is being able to just see past maybe the big four, or see past the top 10 firms, right? Like being able to see, I mean, as a intern at the firm I'm working at, I've been able to help with tech implementations. I just got done doing some bookkeeping for a client. I'm helping with taxes. I mean, I am all over the place. And that for me is exciting, right? Like that's what gets me going about accounting, is being able to help small clients. And I think one of my wishes, just looking back on my accounting education as I enter my senior year, is that more of the exciting and new jobs in accounting are talked about more, so those young accounting professionals who maybe don't see themselves becoming an auditor at a big four, or don't see themselves doing taxes for someone someday, can be able to see, oh, there are so many avenues and so many exciting things going on in the profession right now. Even if that's not where you go in the beginning, maybe that's your second or third stop down your career path. At least you know that those exciting avenues are there.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. So to follow up on that, one of the things I do is I do bring in professionals into the classroom. So we recently had the chief executive officer of Ledger Gurus, which is effectively a fully remote outsourced bookkeeping firm, and they have these professionals all over the country who are doing the bookkeeping for companies who are other places in the country. And so she came in and talked about how she designed the firm. She says, we don't even have a company headquarters. It's at my home, but they do multi-million in billing. And I just had a senior internal auditor from a TIA CREF talked about his experience. I have another one who's, what I try to do is I bring in professionals that maybe are in those other career paths to talk about that. And so that might help a little bit with what you're saying, but I do believe that we need to maybe expand their vision a little bit more as to it's not just you're going to be an auditor or a tax person necessarily.
I love that. And I'm a huge fan of what Ledger Gurus are doing. I've listened to a lot of their content on other podcasts and spoken to a few of their employees. What they're doing is really cool. And they're doing some really cool stuff on the sales tax side now with all the new rules with the nexus with state taxes. It's really cool what they're doing to help their clients, but that's amazing. And we need more of that, right? We need real life professionals coming into the classroom to show students what it's really like, because students, when they tell people, oh, I'm studying accounting, the first response is, oh, I'm so sorry, or, oh, you're going to do my taxes someday, when really there's so many more professionals that are doing exciting things than just, the stereotypical movie and TV accountants that everyone stereotypes us as, right?
Sure. Have you connected with Grant Collins of Nimble?
I have not. I'll have to connect with them.
Yeah, fantastic guy. He went through our accounting program, but he did so well. He just rolled into like chief human resources or something like that. But Nimble is similar to Ledger Gurus in some ways. It's in Salt Lake, but he'd be a great person. He has his own podcast on micro entrepreneurship or something like that. But anyway, Grant Collins, I'll connect you with him. He's fantastic. But also, I think the CEO of Ledger Gurus would probably be happy to join your podcast.
That would be very cool. We'll have to get them on. So shifting gears a little bit, what do you see being the best traits that your best students have? So we talk to a lot of students, a lot of young professionals through this podcast. What are the top traits that these accounting students need to have to not only be successful students, but be successful in the workplace?
Sure. I think they should have some curiosity. I think they have to have some stick-to-itiveness, that they're willing to keep grinding it out to figure things out. A willingness to learn, to continue to learn. And then you need some personableness. You need to be able to get along with people and communicate with people and be willing to serve and help other people. I think they're very valuable traits. And sometimes we think it's all about the task, but that human element and the interactions are essential to well-run businesses. And particularly if you're an outside consultant, that relationship is golden. And if you can't communicate well and try to understand where your clients are coming from, that's going to be tough. It's going to be tough to grow your business. So I think those are just some off the top of my head.
I love that you mentioned that, because that's been one of my favorite things in becoming an intern at an actual accounting firm, is working face to face with people and developing relationships, right? It's especially as technology gets better and better, and as bookkeeping and potentially auditing and tax become more and more automated, the most important things that we're going to do as accountants is going to be that face-to-face work. And I I will argue with people till the day I die that in accounting you do get to build relationships and connect with people on a daily basis. You're not just a number cruncher, a bean counter, as they used to always say. We get to interact and work with people one on one. And ultimately, our goal is to help our clients and help their businesses, right? We're a service business. We're there to help them. And if you don't have those skills as a young professional or as an accounting student, you need to develop them because you're going to be interacting with people every day.
I agree.
It's wonderful. I love it. I love it. Um, so we're coming up on our time here. I love to ask one final question of most of the interviews that I do, and that is, what's the one piece of advice you'd have for accounting students moving forward? And I like to preface it a little bit in that, we're kind of moving into a new age of accounting with the baby boomer generation all retiring and the shortage of accountants we're seeing now and the innovations in technology. What's the biggest piece of advice you have so that accounting students can take advantage of this opportunity?
I would say if we're just focusing on the university experience, their goal through the university experience, one of the biggest goals should be to be able to identify their areas of ignorance and have a pathway to overcoming that. And what I mean by that is you're going to be in roles where you're going to be asked to do things that you don't know how to do. Or you'll come across a task, and in that task, you're going to come across something that you're going, man, I don't even know what that is, or whatever. So to be able to recognize that you really don't know, and then to be able to use your resources, whether they're research skills or your social network, your professional network, how do you overcome that level of ignorance and learn so that you can continue to meet the needs of the people that you're serving? That includes the continuous learning, right? Don't commit professional suicide where, hey, great, I got my degree, I can put it up on the wall, I don't have to learn anything anymore. Continue to invest in yourself every day on something where maybe your professional job is not telling you you have to learn that. Continue to learn and to grow, and there's always going to be a job for you, in my opinion.
I agree. It's such an exciting time to be a part of the profession. Well, Brother Kimball, as I knew you when I was at BYU Idaho, that's what I called you, Brother Kimball. Thank you so much for being on here on the podcast. Thank you for being such a big fan of the podcast and promoting it and being excited about it. It really helps me. But I love what BYU Idaho is doing for their accounting students. What an exciting time to be studying accounting there for all the students who are there. Thank you so much for sharing. If my listeners want to connect with you or want to get to know you better, where's the best place they can reach you or get to know you?
They're welcome to reach out to me via LinkedIn. Just include a note saying, hey, I watched your podcast, and I'd be happy to connect.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much, and I will catch you all next week on the next episode.